Tom had always enjoyed the quiet life. His neighborhood was supposed to be the kind of place where people exchanged polite waves, where kids rode their bikes on the sidewalks, and where life carried on without unnecessary drama. For years, his home had been his sanctuary, a corner lot with a neatly trimmed lawn, a freshly painted mailbox, and most importantly, a private driveway that belonged to him and only him. It wasn't just a convenience. It was a necessity, especially for his elderly mother, who often visited. The thought of her struggling to navigate the uneven sidewalk with her cane made Tom shudder. Keeping the driveway clear was a priority. Then Linda moved in. At first, it seemed like a minor annoyance. A white SUV parked in his driveway one evening. Tom assumed it belonged to a guest or a contractor working on a neighbor's house. He knocked on the door across the street, where the car was likely from, and was met with a smug woman in her mid-40s holding an iced coffee like it was a scepter of entitlement. "Oh, hi," she greeted in a sing-song voice, barely glancing at him. "Hi. I think you might have accidentally parked in my driveway," Tom said, keeping his tone polite. "Oh, sorry about that," she said with a careless shrug. "I was just unloading groceries. I'll move it right away." True to her word, she moved the SUV. Tom returned home, amused by the whole interaction. He thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A few days later, the white SUV was back in his driveway. Again, Tom knocked. Again, Linda gave him the same half-hearted apology. "Oh, I was only going to be a minute," she chirped. Except, based on the layer of leaves collecting on the hood, it had been there a lot longer than a minute. By the fourth time, her tone shifted from apologetic to dismissive. "Come on, it's not like you're using it all the time," she said, waving him off like a pesky fly buzzing around her frappuccino. Tom's jaw tightened. Easier for her. This was his property. His patience was wearing dangerously thin. It wasn't just the inconvenience. It was the audacity. So, Tom started documenting everything, snapping pictures of her SUV parked in his driveway, jotting down dates and times. It felt absurd, like he was starring in a bad sitcom, but what choice did he have? He tried reasoning with her one last time. This time, she smirked. "This isn't really your driveway, you know," she said, her oversized sunglasses perched on her head like a queen's tiara. "It's part of the easement." Tom stared at her, genuinely dumbfounded. "The easement is the strip of grass between the sidewalk and the curb," he said, voice steady. "The driveway is on my property." She shrugged. "Well, that's your opinion." Tom clenched his fists. This wasn't rudeness anymore. This was a declaration of war. The final straw came one Saturday morning. Tom had made sure his driveway was clear for his mother's visit. He stepped inside for a quick cup of coffee and heard his mother shouting from outside. He rushed out to find Linda's white SUV parked directly behind his mom's car, trapping her in. His mother, hands on her hips, glared at the SUV. Who does this woman think she is? Linda stood nearby, gesturing wildly. "I needed the driveway for an emergency errand." Tom's eye twitched. "Emergency? Cupcakes for my daughter's soccer team," she declared as if it was a national crisis. Tom could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Linda, you're blocking my elderly mom in my driveway. Move your car. Now." Linda rolled her eyes so hard Tom was surprised she didn't pull a muscle. "You're being so dramatic. I'll only be 5 minutes." 5 minutes turned into 15. By the time Linda finally moved her SUV, Tom was done playing nice. It was time for a new strategy. Politeness had failed. Now, it was time to escalate. Step 1. Security camera. Tom installed a motion-activated camera aimed directly at his driveway. No more relying on phone pictures. He needed video evidence. Step 2. Legal confirmation. Tom called the local zoning office to confirm what he already knew. His driveway was private property. Not an easement. Not public. His. They even sent him a confirmation email, which he saved for later. Step 3. The trap. 2 days later, Linda's SUV was back in his driveway. But this time, she wasn't home. Tom parked his car directly behind her SUV, trapping it in. Then, he left a note. "Hi, Linda. Since you've made yourself comfortable in my driveway, I hope you don't mind if I make myself comfortable blocking you in. Let me know when you're ready to talk like an adult." Then he went inside, made some popcorn, and waited. It didn't take long. 30 minutes later, there was frantic pounding on his door. Tom opened it to find a red-faced, flailing Linda. "You can't block me in. That's illegal." Tom leaned against the doorframe, unbothered. "You're right, Linda. Blocking someone in on public property is illegal. But this is private property." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "It's not trespassing," she shrieked. "Your driveway isn't private." Tom pulled up his phone, opened the email from zoning officials, and held it up. "Would you like me to forward this to you? Or maybe to the police?" Linda paled. "You're being unreasonable. I just needed a place to park for a little while." Tom smirked. "And I just needed my driveway. Funny how life works." She stormed off. But Tom knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Tom knew that Linda wasn't going to give up easily. She had gotten away with using his driveway as her personal parking spot for too long, and now she was feeling the heat. The next morning, Tom walked outside to grab his newspaper and found something new taped to his door. A passive-aggressive note scrawled in red ink. It's just a driveway. Maybe try being a good neighbor instead of making everything so difficult. Tom laughed out loud. Oh, this woman had some nerve. He wasn't the one making things difficult. She was. So, he did what any reasonable person would do. He framed the note and hung it in his kitchen. Then, he went about his day, waiting to see what she'd try next. Tom had never cared much for the homeowners association. As long as they left him alone, he stayed out of their way. But now, Linda had called in reinforcements. That afternoon, a man in a navy blazer knocked on his door, holding a clipboard like he was about to sell insurance. Mr. Carter, the man asked, giving Tom a tight smile. That's me, Tom said, arms crossed. What's this about? I'm Jeff Daniels, vice president of the HOA. We've received a formal complaint about your behavior toward a fellow resident. Tom raised an eyebrow. A complaint? About me? Jeff cleared his throat. Yes. Apparently, you've been engaging in hostile conduct and creating an unfriendly environment for your neighbors. Tom let out a slow breath. You mean Linda? Jeff didn't confirm, but the awkward shift in his stance said enough. Look, Jeff, Tom said, keeping his voice even. Linda has been illegally parking in my driveway for weeks. I've tried being polite. I've tried talking to her. Nothing worked. She thinks she's entitled to my property. Jeff held up a hand. We understand that there's been a disagreement. The HOA wants to avoid unnecessary tension in the neighborhood. Maybe there's a way to come to a compromise. Tom narrowed his eyes. Oh, I already compromised. I let her park there for weeks before I took action. Now, she's throwing a fit because I finally said no. Jeff shifted again. Well, perhaps if you allowed her limited access. Tom barked a laugh. You want me to give up my driveway to someone who doesn't even live on my property? That's not a compromise, Jeff. That's theft. Jeff sighed. If you refuse to cooperate, the HOA may have to step in. Good, Tom said, crossing his arms. Because I'd love to show you the video footage of her repeatedly trespassing. And while we're at it, we can discuss the legal implications of an HOA trying to enforce rules on private property. Jeff's expression shifted instantly. Video footage? Tom smirked. Oh yeah, want me to send you the files? I'm sure the city would love to get involved. Jeff turned pale. That won't be necessary, he muttered, suddenly eager to wrap up the conversation. I'll, take this under advisement. And just like that, the HOA backed off. Tom figured that would be the end of it. But then, the next morning, he found something new in his driveway. A pile of garbage bags. Linda had dumped her trash on his property. Tom stood there, staring at the mess, his fists clenched. This woman was out of her mind. He took a deep breath, then calmly pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Yeah, this is Tom Carter. I need to report illegal dumping on private property. Within 20 minutes, a police officer pulled up. Tom pointed to the trash bags. Guess whose security cameras caught her in the act? Linda, standing across the street, froze as the officer turned to look at her. By the end of the day, she was issued a fine for illegal dumping, and the city made her come back and clean it up. She didn't make eye contact as she hauled the bags away. For the first time, she looked embarrassed. Tom leaned against his mailbox, sipping his coffee. Funny how life works, huh? Linda glared at him. But she never parked in his driveway again. A week passed. Then two. Linda avoided him. The HOA left him alone. His driveway remained clear. For the first time in months, Tom felt at peace. He had won. And best of all, the next time he saw a moving truck parked in front of Linda's house, he smiled, because she was finally gone.